Hello. I hope you're doing well and enjoying the spring as it gets warmer and warmer. I hope you're also planning to attend the Evangelical Free Church of Canada National Conference in June this year. I'd like to tell you a story today. As you prepare for conference, you will receive the material that comes out from the national office, and one of the things that will be in that package is a proposal to completely overhaul the process of what, or the concept of what we know as credentialing in the Evangelical Free Church of Canada. Now, I had a role in having this, in how this proposal turned out and how it came to be, and I thought it would be helpful for you to understand the story or the genesis of this proposal as you start to look at it and look at the explanations and information that comes out. So I'm going to start where I entered the picture as I remember the story. As you know, I was a pastor in the Alberta Parkland District for many, many years, most recently in Wainwright. And when I became the district superintendent, when you elected me to that position, to this ministry role, I was shortly after that elected by the district superintendents to be the chairman of the Church Vitality Committee. The Church Vitality Committee is made up of the district superintendents, the executive director, the Serve Canada director, and the leadership catalyst of the Evangelical Free Church. We meet monthly, sometimes in person, but usually on Zoom. And as we began this process, there were actually 4 new district superintendents out of 5 districts, all at the same time, all starting at the same time. And what that means is that there was a lot of new ideas and new people in the room on that committee. There was no tradition, that everything was fresh. And all of us, except for one district superintendent, were very recently pastors. And so we brought that perspective into our new role. And so I was elected to be the new chairman of the Church Vitality Committee. And as we met for our first in-person meetings in Langley for 2 or 3 days, we had a lot of things to talk about. And one of the things that I inherited was the agenda from the previous district superintendents. And so I learned as I read back minutes and agendas that one of the things on the table, one of the things to be discussed that I was supposed to lead discussion on, was some ideas around credentialing and around updating the credentialing procedures. This had started before I was part of it, and the Ministerial Standing Committee that manages our credentialing in the Free Church was looking for input from the Church Vitality Committee in terms of what we thought would be beneficial, what would be good updates and upgrades to that process. And so as we started that discussion, as I put it on the agenda and we began to talk in person about this, we talked for a long time. I think it was an hour, maybe up to 2 hours, and we really didn't come to an agreement as to what we would recommend. We wanted a recommendation that we would all put our signatures to, that we would from each district be fully in support of. And so I took that, was thinking about that overnight, and we got together the next day. I asked a different question. Instead of asking what changes would you like to see, I asked, what is the outcome that we would desire? What is, when someone's through the credentialing procedure, what do we want out of it? What would be valuable to us as district superintendents for the ministry people in our districts? Now that question got full agreement very quickly. We all agreed. We all didn't really have to think about it very much. What we want out of the process is good, equipped, and encouraged ministry workers and pastors for the Free Church. Not just any kind of ministry workers and pastors, but Evangelical Free Church of Canada ministry workers and pastors. People who understand who we are, love who we are, and can lead churches and lead ministries in a way that supports who we are, but can do a good job of it. So we wanted a process that would equip people rather than test them. And so then once we had our goal in mind, it was quite easy to design and think through what would reasonably achieve that goal. And so after discussing it and taking notes and everything, the Church Vitality Committee asked myself and Ron Kaliba, who was then the district superintendent of the Central District, to put all those thoughts together and write up our proposal that we could send to the Ministerial Standing Committee. And so Ron and I did that. We brought it back through email to the CVC, got feedback, revised it till we were all really happy with what we had. And then we sent it off to the Ministerial Standing Committee. Now that created a discussion between the CVC and the MSC. As we went back and forth a little bit with the discussion, it led to an in-person meeting of both committees at an orientation seminar where we were all present. And so we talked it through and hashed it through and went through different stages of that process until it was presented to the National Board of Directors for their approval. So they came back with some more things that they thought could be improved about the proposed process, and that process has now been approved by the Board of Directors to come to conference for your approval as delegates and pastors. So one of the things that I'd say first off about the new proposal is that when I received the final product and read through it, my first and intuitive and immediate reaction was, can I hand in my ordination and start over? I'd love to go through this process. And so that kind of was a big plus for me to see, this is a process that I would be really interested in going through because I thought it would benefit me in my ministry to go through a process like what's being proposed. So let me just outline a little bit about this proposal and help you understand it. And then when the information comes out from the national office, you'll be ready to look at that and consider it. So the first thing that we talked about at length when we were thinking through what would reach the goals we wanted is that there's a disconnect. There has always been a disconnect in the Evangelical Free Church of Canada between our actual practice on the ground in the districts and in the churches and our credentialing procedures. So let me explain that to you. This has bothered me from the very beginning, and I think we might be at the stage where we can kind of remove this obstacle from our corporate identity, the way we do things. And so here's what happens in the Free Church. The local church people, the members of the local church, have the highest authority. They make the decisions. They decide who will lead them. They decide who will be their boards and their governments and their elders. And they decide who will be their pastor. So usually they put together a search committee who does a lot of the legwork, and then someone candidates in the church. And when the church members vote, yes, we'd like to call you to be our pastor, that is when the authority is granted to the pastor to do the ministry. That's when the people put their trust in the person they're hiring to be their pastor, and then there's no future process that either the district or the national office can do that would undermine that or change that. That power is in the hands of the local church. And so when we use a word like ordination, the only place it would make sense for that word to be used would be when a local church calls a pastor to be their pastor, because that's when authority is granted. There's nothing in the rest of the structure of the Free Church that could change that or add to it in any way. And so that's what we're trying. That's one of the things this proposal tries to put straight and recognize that that's where that happens. But then what can the denomination, the Free Church, offer to help and assist and equip the church to do better ministry? And that would be not ordination, not credentialing, but accreditation. So the change in words is not just icing on top. This is a change in. This is a proposal to change the very nature of what we're doing and to understand it more clearly. So the local church is given the authority and expected to make that decision about who will be their pastor and what kind of authority and power and decision making they give to that pastor. And so then what the local church is most often not equipped to do is then to train or mentor or mold that pastor into being a good Free Church pastor. equal emphasis on good pastor and free church pastor. And so that's where we can come in with a accreditation process that does that. And so that's what we're proposing that you would vote for. It's really quite a simple process. It starts with the local church doing the vetting, doing the search committee, doing the vote, and giving that person, vesting in that person, the ministry that they call them to. And then the local church would then also present, I guess you could say, the candidate for accreditation. And then the first step would be to come to an orientation seminar together with others. And then in the orientation seminar, all of the people in the accreditation process would be put into cohorts, small groups of probably 4 to 6 people, together with a cohort facilitator. And then over a course of 2 years, they would go through 4 different modules where they would work together in a collaborative way, where they learn together and discuss together different issues of ministry, free church ministry, church government, theology, different kinds of things. And they would work through those things together, not as a write out a paper and then be tested on it, but a process of learning and development over a course of 2 years. And then when that's completed, then there would be an affirmation council where the person who's entering accreditation would be given that kind of affirmation. You've done well. We understand what you've learned through the process, and we want to affirm together with your church that you've developed in this way. Now, I know that it's inevitable, given the context and the history of the Free Church of Canada, that the idea of gender is going to come into this discussion. I really hope it doesn't need to become a major issue because the genesis of this process had nothing to do with that. But obviously it affects those areas in some ways. And so it inevitably comes up. Now the point I'd like to make, and it'll be made in other ways by other people who can speak to it, but with this proposal, the Evangelical Free Church of Canada would no longer ordain anyone. Period. We believe that the local church has the task, the responsibility of deciding who ministers and what kind of authority they give that person, whether it's a pastor or a youth worker or a Sunday school superintendent or anyone in their church. That belongs to the local church. But what the Free Church would do is the Free Church would take anyone the local church presents to them through an accreditation process. So that would hopefully include your pastor, but it would also include others who could be put into cohorts and benefit from this. So for example, one of the things that I'm dreaming of with this new process in the Alberta Parkland District is I'd love to see a number of our churches put forward their Sunday school superintendents. Some of them are fully volunteer, a few of them are partially paid or part-time paid, but whatever the case may be, it would be wonderful to have a group of leaders in children's ministry enter this process and be in a cohort together where they think through, okay, what is the Evangelical Free Church of Canada theology? And how do we properly and adequately reflect that in our lesson plans for children in our church? How do we begin at the earliest stages to train children in the way of being proper and responsible congregational members in the future? And some of those kinds of things and ethical issues and all of that. And so it would benefit, I think, a cohort of volunteer ministers in your churches, many of whom would be women who are leading in children's ministry, who could go through together an accreditation process where your church can then recognize them and say, this person has been mentored and formed through this process, and we really trust them. That would be wonderful. So anyways, the details of this proposal will be coming out from the National in your conference materials. Look over it carefully. I'll be available to talk, to answer questions, to even come to your church if you want me to to talk about these things, and as we prepare for conference in June. So thank you for listening, and I think it's exciting times. I think this this proposal, if it would pass, could significantly change over time the internal culture of our Evangelical Free Church of Canada towards a mentoring, helping along the way kind of culture. And I'd like to see everyone who does ministry in the Free Church to have the opportunity to go through some kind of process like this. So thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.